Hello, everybody, once again. Today we're going to be reading Oliver's Party by Margaret Beams and Sue Hitchcock. So, just by looking at this front cover, take a guess what this book might be about. Oliver's Party by Margaret Beams and Sue Hitchcock. Let's begin. Something was going on. Strange noises were coming from Mrs. Bundy's sitting room. Oliver pushed the door open a little way, slid through the gap, and blinked in surprise. The sofa was piled up high with shiny round things. They were pink and green, yellow and blue and mauve. What does mauve mean? They moved into the draught from the door, and as they rubbed against each other, they squeaked softly. Mice squeaked, but Oliver had never seen mice like these. He crouched, rocking, preparing to leap. "No, Oliver!" warned Mrs. Bundy. Too late. Oliver had pounced. Bang! The loudest noise he'd ever heard exploded around him. Oliver gave a yowl of fright and scooted out into the garden, where he hid under a holly bush. He wasn't going back in there until he was quite sure those things had gone. But what was going on in Mrs. Bundy's sitting room? Oliver simply had to find out. He crept back to the house and peered around the door. The round, shiny things were now hanging high up near the ceiling, safely out of the way, but a new sound made his ears twitch. Mrs. Bundy had spread bright-colored paper all over the table. It rustled and crackled. Twisty, curly string dangled over the edge of the table, swinging to it and fro— "Oliver, no!" cried Mrs. Bundy. Too late! Oliver had pounced again. He caught the end of the string with his sharp claws. Thud! The ball of string fell to the floor. Oliver leaped on it, growling fiercely. He rolled over and over, fighting it, biting it. He picked up the loose end in his mouth and raced around the room with it, in and out of the table legs, over the chairs and under them. Mrs. Bundy made a grab for him. Oliver tried to hide behind the sofa, but she scooped him up and dumped him in the garden. "Out you go!" she said, and shut the door. Oliver sighed. What was going on in Mrs. Bundy's sitting room? Through the open window came delicious smells. Oliver purred. He could smell chicken and sausages, smoky salmon, pastry and cakes. One big jump and he was in the sitting room. Standing on his hind legs, he could just see over the edge of the table, but the food was under a cloth. Suddenly, Mrs. Bundy was there. "Oliver, no!" she shouted in her loudest voice. "Get down!" Oliver tried, but his claws were hooked in the tablecloth. He tugged and tugged. He couldn't let go, even though he wanted to, and as he pulled, the cloth, the plates, and all the food began to slide towards the edge of the table. Mrs. Bundy dived forward and grabbed him just in time. "Oh!" she gasped as she untangled his claws. "Whatever will you get up to next, Oliver?" She opened the back door. "Out!" she said firmly, "and don't come in again." Outside, the wind ruffled Oliver's fur. It stirred up the garden and whooshed around the house. A car arrived. People scrambled out. Children rushed into the house, chattering and laughing. "Welcome home," cried Mrs. Bundy, hugging a little girl. Then she hugged all the others too. No one noticed Oliver slip in as well. He hid behind the sofa and watched. The wind came down the chimney so that all the colored things up by the ceiling shivered and whispered. "Balloons!" shouted the children. They batted them with their hands, and Mrs. Bundy didn't mind at all. Full of excitement, they tore open the presents, scattering paper and string of boxes all over the floor. But Mrs. Bundy didn't once tell them no or say, "Out you go." The wind whistled under the door. It made the paper rustle as if 100 little mice were hiding in it. Oliver couldn't bear it another moment. How do you think Oliver is feeling at this moment? He sprang onto the paper and went skidding across the floor on it. He pounced on that paper. He tore it with his front paws and kicked it with his hind ones. He rolled himself in the ribbons. He beat up the boxes. "Oliver!" cried Mrs. Bundy, but this time she was laughing. "Oliver's having a party too!" cried the children, and when they all sat down to eat, there was a cold chicken on a saucer for Oliver. And that is the story of Oliver's Party by Margaret Beams and Sue Hitchcock. So whose perspective was this book from? What was happening in this book all along? In the beginning, did you think Mrs. Bundy was a good person or a bad person? Do you think this book had some sort of message of any kind? Anyways, if you liked the video, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.